Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of the Anime Banter podcast with your hosts, Turtle, Sean, and Mike. Thank you for joining us today. How you guys doing?
Well, I'm still annoyed because my microphone still is acting all funky, so apologies for any sound issues coming from my end.
I, on the other hand, am doing just fine.
Very sorry to hear about your microphone troubles, Mike.
Hey, thanks.
I'll use my editing magic to make you sound as normal as possible.
Ooh, can you make me sound sexier too?
I mean, you sound pretty sexy to me.
Oh, yeah. Can you make me sound like the Macho Man Randy Savage? Oh, yeah. Cream rises to the top.
I think you got it pretty good there, brother.
Slim to Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what about a soundboard? Like I think I mentioned before, do we need a cringe soundboard where like we just put like random crap on there, like Randy Savage clips and stuff to make? This way, we have even less listenership than we already have now.
Or even more listenership because who doesn't love a Randy Savage quote? Can we make one of the buttons just the Steiner Math promo in its entirety?
Yeah, but honestly, I think the whole podcast would just be Steiner Math on repeat because it's pretty much one of the most perfect piece of like wrestling history.
It's one of the most perfect pieces of audio history from any media source.
Well, I'm not going to put the soundboard together, so I'll leave that up to you guys.
Sounds like a lot of work. I'll pass.
That's
I
why
don't
I
know
don't want
if
to do it.
the listeners know this, but I put the least amount of work into the podcast. Uh, so you know, they're like, Sean, you could contribute more to the podcast by making a soundboard. I'm like, sounds like a lot of work. I wanted to fill you guys in on my weekend. If that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was an event in Pittsburgh called the Sangawa Project. The Sangawa Project is run by the Pittsburgh Japanese Culture Society, the same organization that runs TECO. If you listen to our channel, I guess you'll see an entire episode on the TECO convention where I kind of give some of the a little bit of an insider view into the workings of a convention. And during that during this event, I volunteered. I had to get ramp certified. And I may be asking, what's ramp certification? I got certified to serve alcohol. I do not work in food service, so I had to get a certification to be able to serve alcohol during our Sangawa Social and our Taste of Japan event. Now you may wonder, what is a Sangawa Social? What is a Taste of Japan event? Sangawa Social is just a way to get a bunch of nerds into a room together and have some drinks. We wouldn't serve bartender style. We kind of pre-made the mixed drinks ahead of time and dispensed them out of big containers because just how many people were in the room. At the same time, the Taste of Japan event is we set up 6 stations with 6 different Japanese spirits, and people who bought tickets could come in and they could sample each of the alcohols because I don't know, that's what you're paying for, right? I know a lot of people who want to try Japanese alcohol, but don't want to buy a whole bottle. Like if you want to try Japanese whiskey, but you go to your local liquor store and you see a $35 bottle of whiskey, you say, well, maybe I don't want to spend that because I don't know if I'm gonna like it. So an event like this, it was pretty affordable too. I can't remember how much it was, but I remember thinking that's pretty affordable. Allows you to try 2 different types of sake, yeah, plum wine, whiskey, gin, and I might have been actually a third sake, but a number of Japanese spirits for a low price. And if you liked them all enough, you could just come back and get your favorite. So people who like drinking, it was a fantastic event. If you don't like drinking and you say, well, what else is there to do at this event? Number one, they had the Japanese arcade game set up, so I got to play some rhythm games. I can't remember the one that I played, but it's one where there's like 5 buttons in front of you and a pedal on the ground, and you have to hit like the five like discs in front of you, and sometimes you had to spin them as well. It was super fun. I got to play 3 songs. I got my rhythm game fix in. Also, it's actually an 18 plus convention. Tekka is not. It is for all ages, but Song was actually 18 plus only. So if you're 18 years old, uh, the kind of content that you can consume. And I went to some pretty interesting pieces of content where they essentially, there were adult themes. Like they would talk about. I went to a theme about the all the monster girls of Monster Musume. If you've watched that anime, it's essentially a guy as a harem of monster girls. I didn't find that the plot was very substantial. There was only so much that like a very poor plot with like the monster girls can only take you so far. So I tried reading some of it, and I was like, yeah, this is just not actually very interesting. But it was cool because the panelist was talking about the legends behind the monster girls and potential Japanese equivalents. So I was learning about Japanese monsters, monsters in mythology, and the anime Monster Musume, or the manga, I guess I should say. Oh, they made an anime, but so that's the kind of wild content that you would see at Sangawa. I had a blast. Met up with some friends, and let's see. It's pretty cool if you like small cons. I think there were maybe only about 350 people. So in that regard, it was like a very small, intimate setting, kind of, and everyone had a good time.
Sounds like it was a lot of fun.
Indeed.
Dig it.
Definitely wish I had more time to go to these kind of things.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if you, yeah, I unfortunately, I know your PTO is rather limited, Turtle.
Yes, sadly it is, and I gotta save it for when it really counts.
No, for real. Yeah, unfortunately, the anime con scene is not really your scene necessarily. Like you pop into Techo for a day typically, but outside of that, you don't frequent the con scene like I kind of have in the past.
I don't. I mean, I'm interested in stuff like that, but I definitely don't have the finances to go buying everything in sight. Which when I go to these cons, I kind of get that itch to do so. The other thing is, I definitely have a lot of social anxiety. So too many people, I start to get kind of twitchy, if you know what I mean. For those who suffer similar ailment as I. But I definitely want to at least, especially for Techo, make an appearance if all of us are going just to check everything out. I do enjoy that.
Send me into the big crowds. Send me in, coach.
I'll put you in my stead.
But ready to get into the episodes?
Let's do it.
All right, boys. Today we're talking about episodes 13 and 14 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Episode 13, Aversion to One's Own Kind. 29 years after the death of Himmel the Hero, in the Alt Woods located in the Northern Lands, Frieren is listening to a story by an unknown man. He tells her of two young boys growing up in a village. One had the spirit of a gorilla stuck in a kid's body. Both wanted to become adventurers. The gorilla kid eventually grew up and left on his adventure, but the other decided to stay in the village. He regretted not taking his friend's hand and going with him. He tells Frieren not to regret not taking his hand in order to save him from sinking and dying in the mud that he's stuck in. Frieren says she needs more time to think of a spell in order to save him, and she won't grab his hand because it's dirty and covered in mud.
The way this guy was talking about this story, oh, I regretted not taking my friend's hand and I should have went on an adventure with him. I thought it was going to lead into something with like him or Aizen and be like a flashback scene.
Yeah, I wasn't on that path, but like I was thinking about the story of the man's deep regret, and I'm like, I'm like, all right, this is becoming one of those shows where like they just travel from place to place and we meet interesting people and sometimes hear their sob stories. So I'm like, oh, this guy's just like the next sob story we get to hear, and I'm sure by the end of the episode he'll meet back up with his buddy or come to terms with his buddy's death or something, and then we'll move on. And that was my thought at this point in the episode. But I do love the way that Frieren was kind of like teasing him being stuck in the mud. Also, the classic, it reminds me of quicksand, and that yeah, how everyone thinks that quicksand was going to be a big deal growing up, but in reality, it's not because like I'm never going to be in quicksand probably. So it just kind of cracks me up. But he was doing the right thing, staying still.
Fern shows up as Frieren finally remembers the spell to pull him out. They all travel to the village, and the man thanks Frieren for saving him. Fern apologizes for her teacher and says she will scold her later. Frieren has this hilarious look on her face as Stark says it's his night off.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
He didn't get fired on his day off.
Oof. The man invites them to his village, but Frieren wants to reach a bigger village to restock their supplies. The man thanks them again and warns them to watch out for poisonous animals in the forest. Immediately, Stark gets bit.
Of course it was Stark who got bit. And wow, was that some fast acting poison?
It's immediate.
I've mentioned it in previous episodes, but the visual gags in the show are very good, and I appreciate a good visual gag. Like the snake was goofy looking, uh, like the bite was funny looking, and of course it was Stark, who is a little bit of a punching bag for comedic relief on occasion, just because he fits the bill. Like he and Frieren do. Fern is not very funny in that regard. Like bad things happen to her, it's not funny. But like when bad things happen, to, like Stark and on occasion Frieren, it's kind of funny. But I love the way they're railroading us into going back to the previous town.
Frieren is unable to determine what kind of poison it is, since this is more of a priest thing. They decide to fly back to the village to get Stark some help. I love how depressed Stark is to be like completely helpless as they just like, hold on to him and fly him back to town.
I love the flashback we got of Eisen getting shot with poison arrows, and Hyder was freaking out about it. He's like, "Oh my god, you're gonna die! Oh my god! Oh my god!" And Eisen's like, "It's fine. It's just poison arrows. It's no big deal."
Yeah, he's like totally unfazed.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, I guess Eisen's a dwarf, right? And like Dungeons and Dragons, they're dwarves, and not Dungeons and Dragons, but also tabletop RPGs, like other tabletops. Dwarves have various ways to resist poison, typically. Whether they have like a flat out resistance to it, or they have like advantage to rolling against it, or they have like proficiency to constitution throws and things like that. So dwarves typically have like a poison resistance in like tabletop world. And as we know, a lot of these shows just kind of feel like Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, but consolidated into a series.
It's funny that you mentioned the dwarf thing because I didn't really think about it until now. This episode, and I think some of next episode too, we get a lot of moments where like they're asking Stark to do these ridiculous feats because Eisen did, but Eisen's a dwarf and Stark is a human, so they're a little different. So it's funny that you mentioned the dwarf thing because they're like, oh well, Eisen would just be fine, and Stark's like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, I don't think Stark has the same exact uh,
Constitution.
constitution. Yeah, as Eisen. Eisen was apparently a freak.
Makes for a good joke, though.
It does.
So they head to the village church, and the priest says that they are too late. Stark's brain is going to melt and flow from his nose, but the priest's brother may be able to help. I'll give you three guesses who the brother is. Why, yes, right on cue, the man we met earlier shows up and complains about the church's new wash tub. It's only big enough to fit fingers in.
I loved that little bucket.
It's very funny.
The
And
visual
I love
gags
that
are on point.
and that's like a reoccurring gag we'll see as we go on. It's a good bit. So we find out the man's name is Zine, at least how they pronounce it in English with a Z. It's spelled with an S, but they say it like a Z, so all these German names again. His name is Zine, and he's the younger brother of the head priest. Zine is able to quickly heal Stark and heads out to help the village set up for their festival. How many festivals does this realm have? It seems like there's a festival like once a week.
They only have them when the party's rolling into town, though.
Of course. It just so happens we have a festival. Come join us.
Ain't no party like a free rent party,
Woohoo!
Hmm.
because a free rent party don't stop.
Because it's immortal.
And powered by magics.
I do wonder if Zine is going to be our Hyder replacement for the party.
It's a good guess.
Yeah, that's kind of like the first inkling, right? Where you're like, okay, uh, I was wondering, are we just going to get replacements for other people in the party that we had before? We didn't have a priest, and I was thinking, what do priests even do? Like, they hadn't really told us. Like, I feel like they'd never really shown Hyder using his powers, have they?
I don't believe so.
So, like, I feel like that's what priests in all kinds of fantasy media, they're the healers, right? They use their holy magic to heal people and cure ailments. Your standard white mage. So yeah, I don't know. I guess happy. Yeah, it seems like, oh, I thought they were just gonna solve this guy's problems and we're gonna be on our merry way. Turns out he may be joining the party. Okay, let's see what he has to offer.
The head priest tells Frieren he got his medal and rank from Heiter back in the day. Despite his position, Zine is a much more powerful priest. The head priest asks for Frieren to take Zine with them. Back at the inn, the group is talking about inviting Zine on their journey. Frieren is hesitating, but Stark leaves and says that he's going to invite Zine anyway.
I found it interesting that Frieren was calling her hesitation an aversion to her own kind because Zion is clearly not an elf, and it's clear that Frieren doesn't have issues with mages as she's been mentoring Fern for how long. So very curious of where this aversion comes from.
Yeah, I was kind of curious as well, but maybe it's simply that maybe Zine just reminds Freeran of herself a little bit. I'm not sure in what way. The only thing that I can think they maybe have in common, based on her hearing about his story, is that maybe they both have things that they regret, and that's about it.
I mean, I would argue that she kind of wants to be the main magic wielder. At least that's what I think. She was clearly much more powerful than Heiter was, but there are things that she can't do. But she likes to collect magic spells, so she wants to kind of do everything. The whole Fern bit that you mentioned, Mike, she never wanted an apprentice. Fern was kind of dumped on her, but she realized that Fern had potential, so figured she would just take her under her wing instead of just leaving her by herself. But she never really wanted an apprentice, so I don't know. It might be a stretch, but I feel like she kind of wants to be the only magic wielder in the party, so she can be like, "Look how great I am," and have that smirk little smile on her face when she's all proud of herself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Stark goes downstairs to the bar to invite Zine to join the party. Zine tells Stark that if he can beat him in a game of cards, he'll join them. As we see Zine drinking, smoking, and gambling, I assume this is not going to go well.
Does every priest in this realm love drinking, gambling, and smoking?
Everyone that we've seen,
Doesn't say well, but based on some stories I've heard from some of my friends who used to go to like a Catholic university, it applies in real life too. That priests love drinking at least. Though in our world, it's not necessarily part of Holy Scripture to abstain from any alcohol. For like in the Catholic Church, for example. So it seems like in this world, the priests are probably supposed to abstain.
later on in the evening, Fern hears Stark yelling and wakes up Frieren. The two run outside to find Stark crying in his underwear. They also find Zine in his underwear as well. I guess they're both bad at cards. Zine says he does not want to adventure anymore since he lost his clothes and he can't go. Frieren remembers a quote from Himmel: "Don't dwell on the past when you have the present."
I'm surprised Frieren doesn't have a spell to create clothes, seeing that she learned a spell to get rid of clothing.
Like the Piccolo clothing beam in Dragon Ball Z
Exactly.
just generates clothes out of nothing.
Heck, I'm just surprised Frieren got out of bed.
I know, she was in there pretty comfortably.
That's fair. Also, how old is Frieren? Because in the flashback, she said it's been 500 years since she last fought a demon. So maybe this is her aversion to Zine. Maybe it's some cowardice. Back when she met the party, she really had no inclination to want to fight the demons and adventure. So maybe it's just reminding her of herself back all those years ago.
That could be the reluctance to adventure.
Though we do know how old Frieren is, right? She's over 1,000 years old,
Yeah,
right?
they did
She
say
revealed
she's
that.
over 1,000. We know that much.
So we know that much at least, but we don't know, is she older than 2,000? We don't really know.
We
Um,
don't.
at the same time, thank you, Toro, for writing the quote down here. That don't dwell on the past when you have the present. A lot of people out there living with a lot of regret, and you know, I'm gonna go on. I wouldn't say a rant, but I'm gonna point onto this topic a little more a little later in our episode because it seems to be the theme of the episode.
Yes, and it's a very good quote. Fern is able to recover everyone's equipment from the mayor. That's right, the mayor is the card shark. Fern gives Stark his clothes back by holding them with just a couple fingers, like they're super dirty. Again, stop being mean, Fern. Frieren decides to stay until Zine agrees to join their party.
I love the quote, "Alcohol is the very best medicine." I should totally use that line for Mike's beer of the week each week.
Yeah, this whole scene was just like insane. But I don't know, seeing Stark get wrapped up in Zine's hijinks was kind of fun. He might add a little bit of fun to the party because you have to imagine that I think about like the 6 months they spent in that cabin and how like probably like not fun it was. Because like the group we have here, they're like a fun group, but they're not like super lively. Like Frieren is like, she's like, oh, 6 months, pff, that's nothing. She'll just like sit around, read grimoires, and like chill out and sleep. And so like, I don't know, Fern's always serious, and Stark is just like, I don't know, just a regular guy. So I don't know, like Zai might add some needed excitement to the party, I guess I could say. Not excitement for the viewer because I love the show as it is, but excitement for the party. Like he opens up a new dynamic. Like having an older male human in the party might, I don't know, might open up some new angles where we can explore the existing characters.
We get another montage. This time, the party is trying to convince Zine to join them. And over the montage, we actually get Zine doing a voiceover, which I think is the first time that this has happened in the show. And it's basically him just saying, like, well, he can't go, he's too old, whatever excuse he's thinking of. But the quote that really caught me was right at the end. He says, "They radiate hope, too bright for my tired eyes." What a line.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Turtle, for catching the quotes and like marking them down because like sometimes when I watch the episodes, I hear them, but I don't necessarily catch like the impact. Um, I remember catching it the first time I watched the episode, completely forgot about it. Like within by the time I watched the second episode. So I'm really happy that you caught this one. I like to think I can't remember how old necessarily they said Zion was, if they even specified an age. But I feel like I'm a person who still radiates hope, and it makes me actually like kind of sad that there are a lot of people I know personally. I'm like, do you think you're the first half of the quote or the second half of the quote? And I think I know a lot of people who have the tired eyes, and it's not too late to also radiate hope. Just because you're old, just because you're older, and because you've been a lot, and maybe it's easy for me to say because my life position is in an okay place. But I think it's never too late to radiate hope.
Yeah, I typically don't remember a lot of quotes and stuff, but when that one came across my speakers, I had to pause and, oof, wow, impact. They stop at the church to ask what Zine likes in order to win him over, and the head priest says he likes older women. Zine then enters the church with this tiny little sickle and says he can't even cut grass with this. I love this tiny object gag. It's so funny.
What is this? A center for ants? It needs to be at least 4 or 5 times that size. Fantastic gag.
Yeah, I also once again I cannot give enough credit for the visual gags. It's an it's an instant way to get me to laugh. But whenever, by the way, when Zion's like, like, well, when the priest is like, Zion likes older women, I was like, who doesn't? Am I right? Am I right?
Stark asks if he would join if they had an older lady with them. Zine is interested until Frieren is revealed as the older lady. Zine says she barely resembles a lady. Frieren says she is going to use the ancient seduction technique taught to her by her master. She then blows Zine a kiss. It doesn't work.
I loved this scene. Like, it was hilarious. I love the fact that the ancient technique was blowing a kiss, and then even though it failed to work, seeing Fern and Stark's reaction to it was hilarious. But the cherry on top of it all was the flashback we got of her using that technique on Himmel, and Himmel's reaction to that was fantastic.
Blowing a kiss? How lewd. Nah, this is an anime trope I love. I love when there's like a very mundane, like romantic gesture, and the characters always like freak out about it. Things like the indirect kiss, where like someone drinks like out of a can and they hand it to you, and you drink out of the same can. You're like, "Are we about to have an indirect kiss?" And the characters like freak out and drop the can. And this is like that, where you just like, people are so bashful about the simplest of like romantic gestures. I also want to point out, we did mention this is another seduction trick from Flama, and Flama has given two pieces of advice to Frieren about romance. One was blowing them a kiss being the ultimate seduction technique, and the other one was that men like clothes dissolving potions. And I was like, what kind of relationships did Flama have in her day? I'm gonna guess very few.
Yeah, it seems like her information she passed on is very varied from
Yeah, somewhat
something,
flawed.
yeah, something like blowing a kiss. Oh, no big deal. To like a potion that dissolves clothing. Whoa, hold on.
Though who knows, maybe 1,000 years ago, those techniques were in vogue. Probably not.
So after a conversation and a flashback to the head priest meeting with Heiter, Zine reveals his reason for staying in the village is because of his brother. The head priest gets mad and says the choice to stay was his, and Zine should not stay if he wants to leave. And then he slaps the shit out of him.
I really appreciated Freerun talking to Sign about 10 years being not that long, and the fact that it's better to go searching for his friend now than regretting it later down the line of, I never went to look for them. I don't know if they're okay. I just assumed the worst.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I see this as a very, very important point, and it really closes out the theme that's been there the whole episode. Sun has extreme regret about not going on the journey 10 years ago, and he feels like it's too late for him to begin the new journey. There's a very good message here. If you feel like you missed your chance at your dream, it most likely is not actually too late. You can start college at 50. At any point, you can switch fields at work. You can find love at any age, and you can always make new friends. You can make a difference in this world no matter what age you are. You could even start a podcast. There's no age limit to most things, outside of being like a professional athlete, I guess.
Zine apologizes to his brother and agrees to join the party in order to search for his friend.
I love how Zine asked where they are going, just like Stark did. And he's like, and when Stark was like, "Oh, that's nice," Zine's like, "Well, we'll get there eventually one day." And then I love how Stark immediately tries to bond with Zine over Fern being mean to them.
Stark's probably thinking, finally, some backup.
I'm not the only one getting yelled at. Well, that was a great episode. But before we get into episode 2, I think we need a break. And since we were talking about, some smoking and gambling, there was something else happening.
Some drinking.
Some drinking indeed. What do you got for us, Mike?
Well, you know what they say, alcohol is the best medicine. And now it is time for Mike's Beer of the Week. This week's beer comes to you from Grist House, and it is their Ruby Shaman, a 5% sour that has hints of lemon, lime, blueberry, blackberry, and herbal berry tea. Really dug this beer. I love Grist House sours. They make a great. All their sours are fantastic. Turtle, you and I had this beer at a concert you and I went to with our buddy Greg when we saw Caligula's Horse. We went to the Thunderbird Cafe here in Pittsburgh, and they have a great beer selection there. Shout out to them for bringing in some great musical talent and having a great beer list, unlike other venues that usually just have your usual light beers and Yingling and maybe a Blue Moon or something. So shout out to Thunderbird Cafe. You guys have great beer. You bring in great musical acts. But yes, Grace House makes amazing beers, and definitely check this one out. The untapped average rating is a 4.12, and I give it a 4.
Episode 14, Privilege of the Young. 29 years after the death of Himmel the hero, in the Rad region located in the Northern Lands. They reach town. Stark and Fern make mention of all the nice stalls, and it's worth looking around. We get a flashback of the original party going through the town. Heiter is entranced by the bar, calling the town full of life due to the number of bars. Himmel offers to take Frieren shopping to say thanks. Frieren snaps out of the flashback when Stark asks what she's doing and to get a move on it.
I love this flashback. It, I just love how amazed Hyder was by all the bars in the village. He's like, "Oh, this is the best village. So full of life. Look at all the bars."
At the inn, we see Stark storm out and upset that Fern never listens to him. You tell her, Stark. Apparently, it is Fern's birthday, and Stark did not get her a gift. If everyone remembers, Stark is not used to gifts on birthdays. Cut him some slack. Zine says he also did not get her a gift, and that men don't care about dates like birthdays or anniversaries. Fern gets upset and starts kicking him.
I got a good laugh out of Zine telling Fern to stop kicking him. He's like, "Stop! I'll buy you whatever you want. Just stop kicking me."
Yeah, this is definitely the ship episode.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah.
we're back on we're back on our shipping nonsense here, and yeah, I'm just here for it. I was like, man, I'm just gonna sit here and soak it in.
I was gonna say I really love how even Zine is in on the shipping of Fern and Stark, asking if the lovebirds are fighting.
Zine and Frieren suggest that Fern go after Stark. She finds him in town, but is unable to approach him. She instead goes to find Zine, who's looking for a birthday gift for Fern. Zine tells her that Stark is not the conscientious type and didn't mean to hurt her feelings. He suggests that Fern and Stark make up, then they can go shopping together. Fern apologizes for all the kicking.
I like how Zine brings a level of maturity, if you want to call it that, to the Fern and Stark dynamic. And him calling out Fern for having a sacred birthday gift memory was a nice inflection point on her backstory. I also like how he says to Fern that people can't know how you feel about them without telling them. I'm all for promoting healthy communication.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said there, Mike. Especially the part about Sign bringing a level of maturity to the party, because Frugan's like mature in some ways, but also still very immature in a lot of ways. Like she doesn't really understand relationships. Like, and I'm not just saying like romantic ones. Like, I feel like she barely understands family in some ways, and she barely understands. She like the part of the reason she's going on this journey is because she doesn't actually fully understand friendship, like the friendship she had with all her, the original party of adventurers, right? So she's still figuring all that out, and I think Zion can really go a long way in helping all three of these characters understand their feelings, because he seems to be actually somewhat emotionally mature, which is very refreshing for the party.
Fern and Stark meet up at a Himmel statue and make up, then agree to go shopping together. Ship, ship, ship!
Ship, ship, ship.
Ship, ship, ship.
Zion finds Frieren on a roof spying on them. Zion finds it strange that Fern went to him for advice and not Frieren. She compares Zion to Heiter and has a beautiful flashback before Heiter passed away. Heiter says children need adults to guide them, but he never grew up himself. He says the goddess will praise him when he passes. Frieren offers to praise him and rubs his head. Frieren starts rubbing Zion's head and says he is a proper adult. Zion just wishes Frieren was an older lady. Frieren says there are a few ladies older than she is.
Couple of things here. I love how Frieren was pointing out all of Hyder's faults with a smile on her face. Oh, he was always drunk. He was always hungover. He was always doing this and that and this. Got a good laugh out of that.
The like I don't know, this has been these two episodes have like a lot of really fun flashbacks for both Eisen and Heiter. Like when they flashback to Heiter, and I can't remember which part of the episode that's in. That might be later, but I just want to shout it out. I guess the part where she flashes to the corrupt things, I guess you could say, he's done as a priest, and the parts where she's like, "Oh, he's either hungover or he's drunk all the time." And my favorite is just the clip where he's like hiding a ball of alcohol, and he's like, "What? I haven't had a drop today."
That was a
I
great
love
scene.
I love that scene.
I just I just couldn't take it. It's too funny.
That was a beautiful flashback that we saw.
Absolutely.
But the real question is, are we beginning the Frieren and Zine ship?
I don't think so.
Well, a few things. Number one, the OTP, the one true pair, is Himmel and Frieren. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the OTP, the one true pair. But Himmel's dead, so she has to resolve her feelings for Himmel before she can have feelings for anyone else. Now we've introduced two men into a potential reverse harem situation here. The first one was the man whose name I forgot from the last episode.
Croft.
Croft, that's right. I forgot it too. Good call, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, Croft mac and cheese is definitely ship one, but he pretty much lives eternally, so she can meet up with him in like 500 years, and it's all cool. Um, Zine doesn't have that long. He's into the older woman. Freeren's an older lady. I don't know. I mean, it could work, but it'd be really funny if she just got over her feelings for Hyder. I mean, geez, Hyder. For Himmel, and then somehow missed Zine's feelings, and then at the end of Zine's life, we have to go through this again, and she gets a new group of adventurers.
It's an
It makes
infinite
the same.
loop.
It makes the same mistakes again on the way to heaven.
When will she ever learn?
She's just gonna loop.
29 years after the death of Himmel the hero, in the Banned Woods, located in the Northern Lands. The party is traveling with a merchant in his carriage. He offers to sell them his wares, but Frieren says that trinkets are lost on her. She notices that Fern has a new bracelet, to which Fern gets a little embarrassed. Stark is sleeping. Frieren says that Himmel gave her a ring that looks just like it, but she can't seem to find it. As she digs through her suitcase, she finally finds the ring, just as a giant monster bird grabs the whole carriage, horse and all.
I love how bored Fern looked while Freeren was looking for the ring. And she's like, "You're so disorganized." But I absolutely lost it at the shot of the horse still being attached to the wagon.
It's just like dangling up front.
And like and the horse is no selling it the entire time. You would think if you're a horse, you're freaking the fuck out because you are no longer on land. And he's just like, whatever. I'm flying.
It's almost like this has happened to that horse before.
I hope not. But this is the ring. We're at the end of the last episode of our podcast, for our loyal listeners, we were asking about the ring, right? Well, here we go. We're going to get the story of the ring now. And I was really worried that they weren't going to show it to us for like 3 or 4 episodes or something like that. But no, right here, we're going to get our answers. And I was so hyped when I saw them bring up the ring.
I was shocked. I had no idea it was coming.
Hey, wait a minute.
That
How many episodes ahead of us are you at this point?
is a good question.
I
What
feel
is
like
the
we've got to
most?
be catching up kind of soon. Or maybe not
I
too soon.
think the most recent episode as of this recording is 19, I believe.
We're catching up. I mean, it's though I think we determined that we're going to be wrapping up this section of our podcast around the time that maybe like a week or two after the dub is done being aired.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's but you're only a little bit ahead.
A little bit ahead. I wish I knew it all because I love the show and I can't get enough, but I must wait week to week for new episodes. So as they're dangling in the air, the group decides to abandon the wagon. Frieren comes up with a plan. She's going to grab the merchant and fly out. Fern's going to grab Zine and fly out. Stark asks, "What about me?" Frieren tells him to jump out. Stark freaks out and says a fall from that height would break every bone in his body. Frieren recalls Eisen being able to free fall from any height and land unscathed. We then get this ridiculous flashback of Heiter struggling to climb down a rope, and Eisen just jumps off the cliff and lands headfirst, creating this huge explosion. Heiter was appalled, but Eisen was unscathed.
I'm sorry to be laughing while you're talking here, Turtle, but that scene was so ridiculous, and I absolutely lost it while watching because it was so funny. Like, Isaac just fucking headbutts the ground like a damn torpedo missile.
And like he doesn't even have any facial expression, like he's not even bothered. It's
Really,
just a thing.
he's like super serious, like freaking reminded me. It reminds me of the Ralph Wiggum meme of Ralphie diving through a window.
I know the meme. It's absolutely hilarious. Yeah, this is just like more visual gags, more absolute ridiculousness. And I'm starting to see that like Eisen was definitely like the tank of the party. I feel like this dude could just take a beating.
It being a warrior, lots of HP.
That's it, man. HP and defense.
Yep, and strength. What he lacks in height, he makes up for in the other stats.
Zine says they better hurry up and decide what to do, since this particular monster bird kills its prey by slamming it into the ground. As the bird begins to dive, Frieren flies out of the carriage. She shoots the monster's head off, and the wagon drops. Everyone is surprisingly calm during the free fall, except for Stark. He screams, "You better not drop us!" I think I would be too scared to even scream. After they land, quote unquote, the carriage is broken up pretty good, but the horse is only slightly injured. The horse is floating. Fern and Zine are sitting on the ground. Frieren is bent over the back of the carriage to simulate the mimic joke. It's not gone away yet. Haven't seen that one in a while. And of course, Stark is headfirst in a bush. As the group works together to rebuild the cart, Frieren seems to have lost something. Zai notices Fern's new bracelet. She tells him she wanted Stark to pick it for her. Stark said it took 3 hours of gauging Fern's reaction to pick the right one. It was worth it, though, since she likes it so much. Ship, ship, ship!
Ship, ship, ship.
Ship, ship, ship.
Zine says the design is of the mirrored lotus, which lovers give to each other. Stark freaks out and apologizes and tells Fern he doesn't know the language of flowers. Fern says she knows. Stark is an idiot. Wow, that's mean.
Sign is the captain of the ship.
Yeah, Zion's definitely like pushing this together, but they spent 6 months in a cabin together and made no progress. So like thank goodness someone's here to push it. Zion's like my new favorite party. Like I already approve of Zion, if for no other reason that he is moving the ship forward. So I don't know. Obviously, Fern is mean to Stark, but at the same time, I think it's something that was mentioned earlier in the episode. Fern does not know, and Stark, neither of them actually know how to talk to people their age of the opposite gender. Because Fern was just like raised by Frieren, and they pretty much never came across men. She has some preconceived notions, but she doesn't actually get to interact with the guys her age very often. And really, same with Stark. He lived with Eisen for a while, uh, but besides that, yeah, it's just him hanging out with one dude until he met up with this group. So yeah, I think it's the consequence of neither of them. If there are communication issues between them, it's because they just don't know how to talk to each other. Like because they never had other people to practice talking with.
Stark offers to pick something else, but Fern says, no way. Zine has this sly smile on his face. Fern asks him if there's something funny, and Zine says, ship, ship, ship. We get a montage of the group fixing the wagon over the course of maybe a couple days. They don't really say. I don't think it's like a week, but we see that the girls are sleeping inside the cart, but Frieren somehow ends up sleeping on top of Fern. I thought that was really funny. Frieren wakes up in the middle of the night and begins to look for her missing item. After the cart is fixed, Fern finds Frieren searching. It is revealed that she lost the ring that Himmel gave her. Fern says they will postpone leaving until the ring is found. The ring shared the mirrored lotus design. Frieren says Himmel probably didn't know what it meant. I call BS. I think Himmel knew exactly what it meant.
Well, I agree. He absolutely knew what it meant with how much of a crush he had on Frieren.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, in the flashback, we're gonna kind of see that as well. That's coming up. But one thing I did want to point out that I don't know if we talked about. I guess whenever this was really well done by the writers of the show. Whenever they talk about the design on Fern's bracelet, and Fern says, "I have a ring just like it. They would go well together," she said, and I was like, holy crap, this is going to be I'm telling you, like this ring will be in Fern's possession at some point because Stark's gonna give it to her.
Yeah,
Hey,
ship, ship.
hey.
But I don't know, that's my bold prediction for the future. Is that Fern saying they would look good together? I was like, no, you don't just say that, all right. Fern gonna be wearing it.
We can dig it. It's a good theory.
Our new merchant friend comes through and gives Frieren a spell to find lost accessories. How specific? Frieren flies into the air and casts the spell. We then flash back to Himmel and Frieren at a stall. He tells her to pick a reward for their side quest. I love how he called it a side quest. Video game logic. She grabs a ring very quickly, and Himmel says that she should spend more time and put more thought into it. But when he sees the ring, he recognizes the design. I knew it. He runs in front of Frieren and puts the ring on her finger as if proposing.
Beautiful flashback. But can we build a time machine in this show so we can then go back in time to write the Frieren and Himmel ship?
My heart breaks every time they show flashbacks that develop the Frieren Himmel relationship. Like my heart is breaking every episode at what could have been, and it brings me so much sadness.
I agree. Though Himmel won it.
As the party continues their journey, Fern asks if Frieren is glad she did not give up on finding the ring. Frieren says she supposes she is. She then asks why Fern is wearing a mirrored lotus bracelet. Fern says because Stark is an idiot. And Stark mumbles, no respect.
No respect, I tell you. No respect. No respect here.
Yeah, the Rodney Dangerfield.
So what'd you guys think of these two episodes?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I these are two very good episodes. I'm not gonna lie, I actually wasn't even sure if we were gonna get another party member, but getting Zine on the team so far has been a welcome addition. and not because he has stolen the flashback. I we're not doing a whole bunch of flashbacks for his life right in a row. This show is really good with pacing. I am reminded of when we got Stark. It actually took us a few episodes for us to kind of get a lot of his backstory, like right outside the cave with the sword. I mean, Stark had already been in the party for like 4, 5, 6 episodes at that point. They don't just like introduce you to a new character. The next episode is purely based on that character, and then we move on and never get development for them again, like a lot of shows do. This show, they're like layering the information dumps on people's backgrounds, and I love the way they deliver these stories, because like we got Zion's basic backstory. However, there's probably going to be a little more to it, a little more to it. And at some episode we're either going to A, find his buddy, but more likely B, find his buddy's grave. And Zion is going to have to come to terms with that. And I just really love how the story, not only are interesting things happening and we're growing our world lore and world knowledge, we are also getting the character growth that comes with it. And it's masterful storytelling. I'm telling you, like it is so masterful, and I'm enjoying it so much. So yeah, whenever we finish this recording, I would be happy. I have some other things I need to take care of, but I would really, really like to watch the next 2 episodes before I go to bed.
How about you, Mike?
I love them. They played so differently. Like, they were low key, but they had a different feel to them. The first episode, we get all about Zion and his backstory, and I think he's going to be a fantastic addition to the party, just for the maturity that he brings and some of the different viewpoints that he brings to the world. And then episode 2 was the ship episode, and it was just nice to see, like, Zine trying to point out to Fern, like, "Hey, you need to tell people how you feel, like, Stark didn't mean to, like, wrong you, he didn't mean to do this kinda stuff, like, if you're upset with him, you should tell him, but, like, cut the boy some slack as well." But I'm very excited to see where we go now that we have a full party to replicate the original party. Like, we have Frieren in her spot, we have Stark in the Eisen spot, we have Zine in the Hider spot, and I'm calling Fern the Himmel spot with how they both always wanted to help people. So I'm very excited to see where we go from here. How about you, Turtle?
Oh, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about this show. I've said it multiple times. I absolutely love it. I think it can do no wrong, and I do like the addition of Zine, kind of bringing in a new aspect. You have Fern and Stark who are what, teenagers, so they don't know what they're feeling yet. And then Free Red, she's 1,000 years old, but she kind of has the relationship skills of maybe like a 10-year-old. You know what I mean? Her emotional level is like that of a 10-year-old, where she just doesn't like understand human connections really well. So though she is experienced in like battle in the world and traveled the world, she just doesn't understand human connections. And then you have Zine who comes in and he's just like, what is wrong with the three of you? And he's kind of like helping to kind of guide all of them, which is cool. So I really like Zine as the new addition. I think the episodes are great, and I want to watch the next two, even though I already know what happens.
Oh, one thing I wanted to throw in there. You think anyone's given like Furnish Stark the talk? Like the birds and the bees. Like because now might be the time for Zion to step in and be like, you guys know how this works. Because I don't know if anyone's told him. I'm not sure if Free Ren knows how people reproduce.
That's a very good point. She probably doesn't.
Yeah, she's like, oh, we elves have no desire to reproduce, and I'm like, maybe that's just you, Free Ren.
Zine, I could totally see Zine becoming like the dad of the party.
For sure. Oh, he's got daddy energy. Uh oh.
All right, everyone. It's that time again. The time of the week where we select the waifu of the week. Mike, who is your waifu of the week?
I'm going to keep it simple today. I'm going with the captain of the ship. I'm going with Zine. For a lot of the reasons I already stated. Of the maturity he brings, talking to Fern about healthy communication and actually talking to Stark instead of calling him an idiot all the time and being mean to him all the time. So, yeah, I'm going with the captain of the ship.
Sean, who is your waifu of the week?
I'm gonna go off the rails here. The obvious choice is Zine. You can also make arguments for really any other main characters. I'm gonna pick the merchant. Because he conveniently had a scroll that allowed Frieren to search for an item that allowed her to find her ring. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool how the merchant came through in the clutch because we were never gonna find it otherwise.
I love how he had the perfect spell, but because he's a merchant who sells accessories, it makes sense that he would have it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, just there were a lot of plot convenient things that happened this episode, like getting bit by a snake to turn back around to town, and losing the ring, but the merchant having the perfect spell. And I'm like, man, these things seem to be coming up good. Coming up right for our heroes, I guess.
My waifu this week, I'm siding with Mike. I'm going with Zine. One thing I don't think we mentioned too much is he's got a pretty good sense of humor too, which I appreciate. And any character who you can make me laugh when I'm watching a show, I tend to like those characters. So just another point in Zine's book. He's doing a great job so far. Thank you all for joining us this week as we watched Frieren Beyond Journey's End. We hope you join us next week for episode 47 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we will watch episodes 15 and 16 of Frieren. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews, and if you're listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. We love to chat. Sean, do you have anything you would like to plug?
I'm always plugging the Demon Files podcast. We're still in our mid-season break for season 2. It's taken us a little bit longer than anticipated to get out of it, but we will at some point. I promise we have not abandoned that podcast, so please give us a listen and catch up while we're still on break.
Mike, do you have anything you would like to plug?
Yes. More of a shout out than anything. The day this episode is going, the weekend this episode goes live, my wife is running the Run Disney Princess event. She's doing the Princess Challenge, which consists of the 10K on Saturday and the half marathon on Sunday. So just a shout out to her. Good luck. Love you. I know you're going to do great.
Woohoo, good luck. And I normally plug my YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove. However, I have something else I want to mention. To celebrate our 1-year anniversary as a podcast, we are going to give away a 3-month subscription to Crunchyroll. To enter, just email us a screenshot of you giving the podcast a 5-star review on Spotify and a screenshot if you are subscribed on YouTube. And you can send it to the email animebanterpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you send it in before March 26th. Thank you all for joining, and we will talk to you next week.